Tetsuya Naito defeating Kazuchika Okada to win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship and retain the IWGP Intercontinental Championship in the main event of the second night of Wrestle Kingdom 14 should have been the start of Naito's first run as the true ace of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Needless to say, it wasn't. He was robbed of his moment at the end of Wrestle Kingdom 14 thanks to an attack from Kenta. He was robbed of his long-awaited singles match against Hiromu Takahashi at the 47th anniversary event thanks to the ongoing COVID-19 global pandemic. And then, finally and crushingly, he was robbed of his run as the true ace of the company at Dominion thanks to a really awful booking decision. Naito will never be the ace, and the last 18 months have erased any lingering hope or doubt. It's easy to surmise that the intention behind Evil betraying LIJ to join Bullet Club and defeating Naito at Dominion last year was twofold. First, it generated a major buzz for the company after it returned from its hiatus. And secondly, it gave the company someone else to slot into main event matches while other stars were unable to travel to Japan due to the pandemic. It wasn't an inherently bad idea, but the execution was poor. Evil's victory over Naito at Dominion wasn't a great match. And more importantly, elevating Evil shouldn't have come at the expense of Naito's run. Granted, a defection from LIJ seemed inevitable. Many suspected it might have been Sanada after he was the only member of the group to not hold a title after Wrestle Kingdom 14. Evil was symbolically the right choice. He was the first person to stand alongside Naito, and Naito had made recent comments about how Evil was the lowest ranking member of the group. If there was to be a betrayal, it had to be Evil. But to join Bullet Club alongside Dick Togo and totally bastardize the quality of Evil's matches, who is genuinely a good brawler and had quality matches against the likes of Tomohiro Ishii and Satoshi Kojima earlier in the same year, in the name of hokey, stereotypically bad, and very outworn Bullet Club interference, is just bad. Naito would go on to defeat Evil to win back both titles at Summer Struggle in Jingu. What should have been a great moment, Naito posing with both titles while fireworks go off in the background at New Japan's first show in Jingu Stadium since 1999, was actually just a really depressing image of a totally lost cause. But even before Naito's tragically shambolic 2020, the journey to defeating Okada at Wrestle Kingdom 14 was a convoluted mess. After losing to Okada at Wrestle Kingdom 12 2 years earlier, he spent the entirety of 2018 in limbo while on-again, off-again feuding with Chris Jericho. He finally defeated Jericho at Wrestle Kingdom 13, wrestled a trilogy of great matches against Kota Ibushi throughout the first half of 2019, and seemed destined to win the G1 Climax and challenge Okada again at Wrestle Kingdom 14 in a double title match. But instead, Naito lost in the B Block final to Jay White, then lost the IWGP Intercontinental Championship to White a month later at Destruction in Kobe. But do not fear, Naito heroically cemented his rightful place in the double gold dash at Wrestle Kingdom 14 by defeating Taichi at Power Struggle. What? I had really high hopes for Naito's double title reign after watching Wrestle Kingdom 14 last January. I thought Naito versus Jon Moxley was a strong, logical, and very exciting possibility for the main event of Dominion 2020, as Moxley had pinned Naito during the G1 Climax in 2019. Instead, Dominion 2020 turned out very differently. Now, I'm not choosing to share my thoughts on this because I see myself as some ultimate truth bearer. Rather, I think a lot of other fans might relate to the general feeling of frustration and confusion that I've associated with the double title concept over the last 18 months or so. I think a lot of appeal to New Japan for a Western audience is the company's streamlined, logical product. The tournament-based schedule allows for all kinds of wrestlers to either regularly cross paths or be kept apart entirely until the time is needed. That means that different storylines and rivalries and individual character arcs can be played out at varying or concurrent lengths. This can allow for every marquee matchup to have its own unique and ongoing backstory. Look no further than all the times New Japan's Big Four of Naito, Ibushi, Okada, and White have all crossed paths. Their stories are going to forever be interlocked due to all of their involvement in the Double Gold Dash. But, and again entirely personally speaking, I feel like I've lost that warm, comforting feeling of logic in a lot of big matches lately, particularly in 2021 and with the IWGP Heavyweight Championship and IWGP Intercontinental Championship matches. To me, the narrative has felt more like these are matches that are happening now, rather than a piece of carefully constructed and considered story. If we continue the timeline from Summer Struggle in Jingu, where Naito defeated Evil to win back both belts, then up next is the G1 Climax. Will Ospreay defeated Okada and Ishii shockingly beat White on the last day of A Block competition, which paved the way for Ibushi to advance to the final. In B Block, Sanada defeated Evil on the final day to book his slot in the final, and then of course Ibushi defeated Sanada to become one of the few wrestlers ever to win the G1 Climax back-to-back. However, Ibushi lost his challenge right certificate to White at Power Struggle. Naito then threatened to quit the company if he didn't get his match against Ibushi at Wrestle Kingdom 15, and thus the second coming, and not as good, version of the Double Gold Dash was created. Naito would defend both titles against Ibushi on the first night, and the winner would face White on the second night. Now, Ibushi finally winning the IWGP Heavyweight Championship was the obvious and right call for Wrestle Kingdom 15. However, his reign immediately got off to a bad start for me when Sanada came out to challenge him on the second night of Wrestle Kingdom. I guess I just didn't get it. Sanada had just lost to Ibushi in the G1 Climax final 2.5 months prior. Sanada challenging Ibushi wasn't a callback to a defeat in the G1. It wasn't a shocking moment like Kenta attacking Naito a year before, and it wasn't a bubbling blood feud which had been building for years. It just kinda happened, and by the way, after Wrestle Kingdom is when the unification talk started. This is going to get very important very quickly. Ibushi defeated Sanada at the New Beginning in Hiroshima, and Naito came out to challenge Ibushi afterwards. Specifically, Naito challenged for the IWGP Intercontinental Championship because Naito didn't want Ibushi to unify the titles. This made sense in the context of Naito's character, but again, personally, I struggled to get invested, as Ibushi had literally just beat Naito at Wrestle Kingdom, kinda like how Ibushi had just defeated Sanada in the G1 Climax final. I was pretty certain that Naito defeating Ibushi at Castle Attack would be how New Japan would finally separate the titles and put the double title concept to bed. An opinion I remember seeing on Twitter was that New Japan just needed someone who could take the Intercontinental Championship off of Ibushi, but was a big enough star to not hurt Ibushi in the process, and Naito was that guy. But then Naito lost at Castle Attack. El Desperado, who had just won the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, came out and challenged Ibushi to a double title match for the company's anniversary event 4 days later. Traditionally, the Junior Heavyweight Championship holder faces the Heavyweight Championship holder in a non-title match at the anniversary event. As mentioned earlier, Naito vs Takahashi was scheduled to headline last year's anniversary event. But El Desperado challenged Ibushi to put both titles on the line. It is pretty rare to see a junior heavyweight wrestler challenge for either title. Prior to the introduction of the double title concept, the last time it had happened was when Prince Devitt, obviously now Finn Balor in WWE, challenged Okada for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship all the way back in July 2013. El Desperado and Ibushi have a history together too. When El Desperado returned from excursion at Wrestle Kingdom 8 in 2014, he presented Ibushi with a bunch of roses and challenged him for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, which Ibushi had just won. A month later, at the New Beginning in Osaka, Ibushi retained the title against El Desperado, and it remains their only singles match to date. However, before the match was officially confirmed, the chairman of the company told Tokyo Sports that the two titles would be officially unified to create the new IWGP World Heavyweight Championship in the spring. Ibushi would be recognized as the first champion, and the first challenger, the winner of the New Japan Cup, would challenge Ibushi at Sakura Genesis. This immediately calls into question El Desperado's challenge from Castle Attack. Of course, the story does not end there. New Japan held a press conference, and Ibushi specifically requested his match against El Desperado would be for both titles. His request was granted. So just to spell out this absolute whirlwind of about 12 hours from the end of Castle Attack to New Japan's press conference, the final ever match for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship and the IWGP Intercontinental Championship will be Kota Ibushi versus El Desperado at the 49th anniversary event on 4 days' notice, because El Desperado challenged Ibushi at Castle Attack. However, before the match was made official, the chairman of the company announced the unification of both titles and the creation of the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. Ibushi specifically requested for a double title match, and now it's happening. I don't know whether to laugh or cry or FaceTime or even facepalm, because why would I FaceTime anyone or bang my head against the wall? I don't know. I don't understand. Ibushi versus El Desperado will be a great match. Of course it will be. But to have it as the final ever match for these two titles on 4 days worth of build between two competitors who don't even have a history against each other, this is such a blown opportunity. Also at Castle Attack, the likes of White and Okada promised to win the New Japan Cup and reclaim the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. I don't know if they both have new ostrich gimmicks, which must have missed me, because the only reason they would say that is if they had their head in the sand and missed Ibushi talking about unifying the titles for literally 2 months. Or if that's the case, is the new title just the same as the current IWGP Heavyweight Championship? And if it's the same, then why does there need to be a new physical belt with a new name and a new lineage? Or do the likes of Okada and White and everyone else in the company just not care about the unification to the same extent that Naito did? Why am I having to ask so many questions? In case it wasn't clear, I just can't stop thinking about how this all could have been done so much better. Being the first ever double champion should have been a novelty and an honor saved exclusively for Naito, the absolute pinnacle of his career. Instead, it was passed from Naito to Evil to Ibushi, and I don't think it elevates any of those wrestlers. I think it just devalues both of the titles with every switch. How else could the titles have been separated? I don't know, and I don't even care, because it literally couldn't be any worse than a series of events from Wrestle Kingdom 14 last year to now. Now, I have been very angry and had lots of strong words so far, but despite all of that, I don't think this is entirely bad, although I do very clearly wish we could have gotten here differently. I think having less titles is definitely a good thing for New Japan. I think Hiroshi Tanahashi will absolutely elevate the Never Openweight Championship, and I think also elevating the Never Openweight 6-man Tag Team Championships have been a priority since the company returned from hiatus. I also think that Wrestle Kingdom 15, with Naito finally defeating Okada, and the retirement of Jushin Thunder Liger, was sort of the end of an era, and we are now moving into a new era, with a new ace in Ibushi and a new title in the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. While yes, I have my gripes over the journey here, I would be a fool to sit here and say that it's not intriguing and not exciting. The fact that the winner of the New Japan Cup will be Ibushi's first ever challenger for this new title is interesting. They say it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, but for me, and the double title concept and the introduction of the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, it is entirely the reverse. I apologise for the lesser audio quality for the first 4.5-ish minutes of this video. I'm still getting new to this and recording. I'll try to avoid that in the future, but that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed. By all means, leave a comment telling me what you thought, if you agree with any points, disagree with any points. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.